On the day following the deep dive, GSC posted a new trailer called World on Locations. It includes all the small gameplay snippets shown within the deep dive, with in-game sounds rather than developer commentary, as well as some brand new exclusive scenes which hyped up the fans even further. Hello Stalkers and welcome to the Anomalous Dugout. Without further ado, it's time to break it all down. This is a view of the sunset from one of the garbage piles, looking at the southwest. We can spot the blimp in the distance, which we previously saw on the paper map. The purpose of this aircraft is unknown, but I have a feeling it might be used for observation of the zone, perhaps as part of scientific studies by the S.T.A.L.K.E.R or for general surveillance by the world. Its presence also means Zalissya must be somewhere around here. Moreover, many different buildings can be seen all over the scenery, but it's a bit difficult to identify recognizable landmarks. Thankfully, cranes are here to help us out. This first crane, broken, is probably the one at Slag Heap featured in the Not a Paradise trailer. The two cranes still standing are from the Dark Valley. Indeed, we have the main complex, as well as the smaller abandoned factory. Overall, I love these large overviews of the zone because they demonstrate how vast and seamless the world of this game is going to be. In the deep dive, Maria and Yevgen Grigorovich both talked about this topic. They are respectively creative director and game director / studio executive at GSC. They reiterated that Stalker 2 will be a seamless open world with very little in terms of barriers to stop the player from exploring. Moreover, the zone will be vast in order to convey the feelings of freedom, loneliness and anxiety. Skif is facing one of those claw-shaped formations that are sometimes created under the influence of gravitational and thermal anomalies. We saw similar anomalous fields in various locations in Clear Sky and Call of Prypiat, and this one is said to be the reworked version of the Symbiont in the Red Forest. It is probably located in this spot on the map. Here we have hangars filled with rusty equipment like helicopters, trucks and BTRs, in a location not far from the Duga radar. I think it could be an old military base that features an airfield, which would correspond to the plane icon on the map just south of the antennas. The energetic Palace of Culture in Prypiat. Simply beautiful. I bet the interior will be fully explorable. It used to be a monolith base, so I wonder what kind of stuff we will find inside. The statue of Prometheus holding flames, the titan of Greek myth who gave fire to the humans. It represents the intelligence, determination and industrious nature of our species, as well as technology in general. It is a very real sculpture originally located in front of the Prometheus theater, just like it is depicted here and as it was in Call of Prypiat. However, it should be noted that the real-life statue was moved closer to the power plant following the Chornobyl disaster. Dmitry Anashka, level art lead at GSC, explained that the zone was crafted using a combination of real and fictional elements, carefully reworked and put together to create a coherent world. One of the apartment complexes in the city, now overgrown by nature. I think that's where the mercenary deal took place in Call of Prypiat during the mission One Shot. Notice the different status of windows, some intact, others with missing or broken glass. I wonder how the reflections will look up close, and if we will be able to shatter the glass even further. A random corridor from one of the buildings, with a crazy amount of details on the floor and walls. We can hear what seems to be the sound of a young child, which makes me believe this could take place in the kindergarten or in one of the schools. These places were already pretty spooky in Call of Prypiat, but if they added such ambient noises it will be even better. Furthermore, Dmitry mentioned the fact that monolith camps are especially creepy in such locations due to the contrast between children appliances and the mutilated bodies displayed by the fanatics. The view from one of the rooftops, looking to the southwest. We can see the top of the excavator at the quarry as well as Zulu's tower on the horizon, meaning Yaniv is right there. Ever since we've seen Prypiat in the game, fans have been wondering how accurate the depiction of the city will be and if the entire place will be explorable. From this shot alone, I think the answer is pretty clear. I tried to figure out the place where Skif is standing, and sure enough, I found a perfect match. The building in front has a Soviet symbol on top. It's one of two pretty famous constructions located near the Palace of Culture, part of which can be seen on the right. The long building with the inscription, "Let the atom be a worker, not a soldier," is also quite iconic. With this, no mistake can be made. The scene takes place in this section of the city. From Skif's perspective, the edge of the rooftop is close to his left. The only possible building matching these parameters is this apartment complex. This is actually not just any building. It was nicknamed the White House because of the fact it housed some of the most important people in the city, including government officials and the director of the power plant. Considering that all the buildings seen by Skif exist and match their real-life counterpart, I think it is fair to say that Prypiat has been very faithfully recreated by the developers. Possibly the edge of the map or one of the rivers in the zone. This old Soviet bus has tanks on its roof, so I believe it had a gas-powered engine at some point. If there's any expert on such vehicles, please tell me everything about this model in the comments below. According to the radar, there is an enemy right behind it, but I can't make out what it is. This scene takes place at Chornobyl II, the small town where Duga radar is located. The large street with the Soviet-style apartment building reminds of the Prypiat main alley from Shadow of Chernobyl. But don't be fooled, this is indeed Chornobyl II and not Prypiat, as confirmed by the appearance of the Duga antennas at the end. I tried to figure out if this recreation of Chornobyl II is accurate to its real-life counterpart, and it looks like it's not, at least from what I could observe. For starters, the Duga radar in itself is not oriented correctly, as it faces towards the northeast in-game rather than northwest in real life. Moreover, the building in this scene does not seem to exist, as I could not find a perfect match for it. Some nearby constructions do look similar, but there are still differences. Well, no big deal. As Dmitry pointed out, the real locations only served as prototypes, meaning some things had to be rearranged for various reasons, including gameplay purposes. These rows of garages with old cars are difficult to locate exactly, but they remind me of a small spot in Shadow of Chernobyl version of Prypiat. The scene briefly showcases the rain effects. Skif is holding the Viper 5, and I'm not sure if it's affected by the rain or if it has a subtle camouflage applied, but its color kinda looks different. Skif attaches the scope to the SA Lavina, in a location filled with various machinery and vehicles. On one hand we have construction equipment, like the heavy transport truck, digger and bulldozer. On the other hand, we see military hardware such as the car, truck and BTR, so I'm not quite sure what this place was supposed to be. Perhaps a military base or burial ground for radioactive garbage? In any case, it must be quite far into the zone, since the chimney of the power plant can be seen in the background. Lastly, the iconic chemical hazard crates that were heavily featured in the original trilogy are back. Maybe we'll finally clear out the mystery behind them. This is obviously right next to Yaniv Station. That's the only place where you'd find so many track and train carts. Plus, one of the iconic towers is here, so I was able to find the same spot in Call of Prypiat. Here is how it looked back then. Night time at one of the vehicle scrapyards. I say one-off because I think the big giant truck cemetery will not be the only place with concentrations of derelict machinery. In fact, I believe this scene is probably taking place in the reworked garbage instead. The large metallic structure over there reminds me of the built version of the broken bridge at the cordon. We can also spot power lines for train locomotives, as well as the CNPP chimney in the distance. The abandoned Prypiat Amusement Park during the night. Skif is using a modernized version of the M14 rifle, and showcases the animation for turning on and off the flashlight, which, like in the originals, is a headlamp. I must say that from all the footage we've seen, the city appears to be quite empty, and will keep its status of eerie ghost town. Stalkers probably still have difficulties getting to the place and exploring it, and I bet it will be inhabited by dangerous mutants, as well as remnants of the Monolith faction. Here's another part of the park at the bumper cars. Electric type anomalies are sparkling on the ground. There is also a dead body over there, but its position makes it very difficult to identify any affiliation. This view looks so real. It feels like a real photograph. A Soviet symbol is located on the roof, which means this is the same building we saw already and that helped us identify Skif's position in Prypiat. Skif reloads the Zubr 19 in front of the Prypiat Music School, which is adjacent to the Prometheus theater. While this building may not be as iconic as some others, I really like it and cannot wait to explore it in the game. The mural on the facade is beautiful, and I feel like various props such as old music stands, dusty pianos and other abandoned instruments will give this place a very peculiar and unique atmosphere. Here are the Boars. Always nice to see a classic and familiar mutant return in good shape, especially in such a detailed environment. It looks like the forest will be full of life and as meticulously crafted as the swamps we saw in the Quest gameplay. Skif holds the PMM in front of an interesting building, the sign of which proudly announcing Production Association Rostok. The name Rostok means sprout, which is where the symbol of a small plant comes from. There is no doubt the famous factory will be expanded compared to its version in Shadow of Chornobyl, in the sense that all the buildings previously out of bounds will now be available. This must be one of them. By the way, I think this is the first shot we've seen where the weapon appears but not the HUD. It was confirmed that the HUD will feature options for customization, including simply disabling it. Thank you, Mullet. This seems to be a small settlement lost in the woods. It's difficult to pinpoint where it could be exactly, because there are many such villages in the exclusion zone. Nonetheless, a pretty cool location to get in-game, especially since the originals did not really feature such a place. We had some villages, but none were completely surrounded by the forest like that. Skif attaches a silencer to the AR-416 in a location we all know too well, Laboratory X18. This is the radioactive room with the chemical containers and the square pool with the fruit punch anomaly. Personally, I expect the old labs to come back, as well as some brand new X facilities to be revealed. Also, I noticed the classic metal box over there, and the icon for hunger can be seen in the HUD. Another view from the Prypiat rooftops, looking towards the southeast in the direction of the power plant. I love the ominous presence of the giant station in the distance. The generators located right next to it are visible. Contrary to what the website artwork suggests, the view here seems to indicate that the generators have been destroyed, or at least we can see the top of the spheres are broken. Perhaps this is the result of Operation Zenith, a large-scale endeavor organized by Dr. Dalin of the Circa back in 2013. Either way, we know that another set of generator exists further north, in the true center of the zone, called Dead Valley. The location is probably inspired by the old concept cancelled during the development of Shadow of Chornobyl. These generators were placed in a circle-like formation, in the middle of which stood a large antenna. Well, sure enough, the top of this antenna can be spotted right here above the roof. Moving on to some old apartment, abandoned ever since the evacuation in 1986. Everything is very detailed, from the decrepit wallpaper to the furniture. It seems we'll be able to visit many such interiors in the zone. Another apartment in a similar state. The various objects scattered around like newspapers and baby dolls really give the feeling the inhabitants left in a hurry to evacuate. Notice how the radiators have been taken by the looters. We should not forget that in real life, people nicknamed Stalkers went into the zone to get scrap metal instead of artifacts. Back where it all began, the Cordon Car Park, the first bandit encounter from the trilogy, although we usually did not yet have the AKS-74U back then. It looks like the cordon is now more filled with vegetation than before. The graffiti is bandit jargon. It stands for something along the lines of "What's up, dude?" Lastly, there's the icon for inventory overload. Now, this is a location we could not figure out from the map. It turns out to be a giant concrete structure with a tall antenna on top, the purpose of which remains unknown. I'm quite sure this building does not exist in real life, or at least not in the exclusion zone. The facility definitely handled heavy machinery, as indicated by the large and rusty crane platform. The movement of leaves here characterizes the presence of gravitational anomalies. Last but not least, an NPC standing in the distance, and it looks like it might be Strider. He's not wearing his monolith suit, but the same attire from the Come To Me trailer. Oh, and I almost forgot the new shotgun weapon, probably a KSG. Here's the Rookie Village, very similar to the original, except much more detailed and overgrown. There are many stalkers around going about their own occupations. Notice this guy on the far right? His haircut reminds of the legendary guide, but I doubt it's him. Other details include the smoke coming out of one of the chimneys, indicating that someone might be cooking some food, as well as the giant wall of the perimeter seen in the distance. Now for Yaniv Station, the southern entrance. Icons on the radar reveal that the camp will be fitted with a technician, a place to rest, a trader, and multiple important characters. There's also an unknown icon that could represent a compass or a scope. If it's the former, it might be a guide, as we know you'll be able to use their services in-game. If the latter, it could be a shooting range, like in Clear Sky at Ahroprom, or even the bird shooting game at the Garbage. Other interesting elements include the large pool of blood on the floor, the power plant chimneys in the background, and part of Zulu's tower on the edge of the frame. 100 Rads Bar is back! What can I say? It's glorious! The barkeep himself is also here, even if it looks like he's younger instead of older. He might have lost some hair, but he's still got the jacket and tattoos. It has to be him. I really like the details in the form of all these unique utensils and objects, especially the cups, the TV and the waiting machine. Oh, and the cans of energy drink have not moved an inch. It's interesting to see another stalker interacting with the barman. Looks like he might be buying some bread. But apart from him, the bar seems suspiciously empty. More on that later. Well, I admit that I was wrong. Since we previously could not see the antennas of the brain Scorcher, despite having a good overview of where they should be, I had theorized that the installation might have been brought down by the authorities. I stand corrected, although one tower did end up crashing down onto the nearby building. Unsurprisingly, the installation is still non-functional, so it's anyone's guess as to what happened to this area and how it will be utilized in the game. Furthermore, the body of an unknown soldier of the IPSF lays there, with the radio on the back. Skif is holding the AR-416 with scope and camouflage at the location of the Prypiat River port. As he enters the building, we can hear the detector beeping. This scene surprised everyone, due to how the sound changes depending on the reverberation of different rooms. It should be noted that sound design has always been outstanding in all of GSC's trailers, and it seems it will also be impeccable in the game. The sign says restricted area, but that's not gonna stop us, is it? Here is the Mineshaft located at the Red Forest Natural Reserve, that was the home of Forrester in Clear Sky. It is unknown if Forrester will be in the game. He has not yet been seen, and he was already quite old in 2011. So there is speculation that he may have passed away during the last decade. I guess we will see when the time comes. Of course, this place has an elevator that goes down the mine, but we've never went down there before, so I wonder if we'll be able to visit it in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. In my opinion, the mines have a huge potential for scary underground location, so I'd like to see them greatly expanded. In the scene, Skif equipped the suppressor on his AK, already fitted with the scope. A closer look at the perimeter checkpoint, essentially the southern exit of the zone, which we saw Skif assaulting in the Come To Me trailer. The inscription above the door says, "Closed area, stay away." I must say the whole thing looks very imposing. You'd definitely not want to get close to it, especially if that guard tower has one particular machine gunner. Skif is going down the hexagonal staircase leading to the Ahroprom underground. The location looks great, in the sense that its state of decay is well represented with many details, such as apparent steel frames in the concrete, rust all over metallic elements like pipes and stairs, and cobwebs taking over. I wonder how spiders look in the zone. Skif is holding an AKS-74 with green camo on the handguard. At some point we can briefly notice the feet of a skeleton, one of which still has a boot on. Armed with the SPSA shotgun, Skif overlooks a large underground room with a lot of pillars and big pipes going down in the dark. It reminds of the basement of the ventilation complex in Call of Prypiat, or even the mutant teaser from a while ago, but I don't think it's the same place. The zone is supposed to be filled with many underground locations, and I'm quite sure we will get to explore a lot of them, which I'm really happy about. Here's another underground room, possibly an ex-laboratory, as hinted by all the old science equipment. The row of screens on the wall remind me of the surveillance room in X-16. Skif is using the Mac machine gun. Also I spotted some meds, possibly Psyblock, waiting for pickup on a shelf. Speaking of which, I find this cluster of small pieces too conveniently placed together to be random, so I think it might also be a pickup of some sort, maybe some old electronic components to collect for a mission. And another underground or inside area. This could be anywhere, so it's really hard to guess where this takes place. Could be some sort of basement or even the interior of the power plant itself, who knows. Maybe if we found out which building has this kind of toilet bowl, we could figure it out. Heh, just kidding, of course. Anyway, Skif is equipped with the Vector, a weapon we had not seen in his hands before. I like how dark this area is. It feels like it would be pitch black without the flashlight. Also, I think it's interesting how certain pipes are insulated, but others aren't. Probably they are made for hot and cold water respectively. Lastly, there's the corpse of a rodent, as well as a few spare boots laying around. Next, we see the area from a previous scene again, the one with the SPSA shotgun in hands. This time Skif stands at the bottom of the room and looks up, revealing a huge fan in an opening leading straight to the surface. We've actually seen this before, in the section of the Ahroprom underground that was flooded by S.T.A.L.K.E.R in Clear Sky. My guess is that these underground facilities were used as secret chemical factories to produce the substances required for the X experiments, and as such, required powerful ventilation. Indeed, potential chemical fumes need to be evacuated in order to ensure the safety of the personnel, especially when working in such enclosed spaces. Now the mystery remains on how the fans are still working up to this day. Skif's entering the hall of an unknown building, decorated with a beautiful mosaic on the wall. The people depicted remind me of workers at the power plant, and there is even a symbol of the atom in the woman's hand. The sphere-shaped sculpture itself reminds of the representation of the atom. Due to these elements, I first believed this place could be somewhere at the CNPP. However, the signs on the wall seem to tell another story. This one says, "Soldier Radio Operator," and then some stuff I could not understand. The other signs says, "Without communication there is no control. Without control there is no victory." With this in mind, there is a good chance this is actually taking place at the Duga radar or in Chornobyl 2. A checkpoint of the Duty faction. We suspect that the main base of Duty will be located at the cement factory, marked concrete on the map. One guy is wearing the updated PSZ suit with a gas mask. Another has the Duty variant of the Seva. Notice how we can now see through the glass of the helmet. And the last one I'm not really sure. Looks like a brand new armor piece. The sign says, "Kill the mutant, destroy the zone." Stalkers relaxing at the campfire, playing the guitar, tinkering with the detector. The scene is taking place in Zalissya. We've recognized it because of the tower. We know this village will have a nice stalker camp. I'm interested in the big brick building over there, but I'm not sure what it is. I read that Zalissya had a school and a hospital, so I think it might be one of the two. Unfortunately, I could not find any pictures of them, so I can't say for sure. Notice the ward patrol passing by. Speaking of which, the ward people up close. It is clear NPCs will have various idle animations, including smoking a cigarette. We also have a first look at the patch for the ward. The entrance checkpoint at Rostok, controlled by the Freedom faction. Looking at the updated costumes, we have the Freedom version of the Seva, what seems to be some kind of heavy armor, and the very same suit but worn with an exoskeleton on top. Originally, the exoskeleton was meant to be an accessory that you could put on the suit. However, this idea was scrapped during the development of Shadow of Chornobyl. I guess the concept is coming back, though it is still possible for the exoskeleton we know of to be in the game as well. In the developer commentary, Maria and Dmitry mentioned some interesting information about factions. All the groups will have unique bases arranged in ways to reflect their ideologies. The characters will also act accordingly to their personalities. For example, dutiers will enforce military discipline, loners will remain alone or in small squads, and monolithians will generally be a bit scary. Moreover, factions are complicated, because they are formed of many people who have different opinions on certain things. Even if they share a common view of the zone, they may disagree on other stuff, and this will lead to some group members acting weird or even breaking up from the rest. Apparently, faction leaders will sometimes change due to these disputes. It's definitely an interesting concept that adds realism to the game, but it remains to be seen how it will actually work in the details. Then we see a huge device, the same from one of the concept arts. Despite being empty, the facility looks way too clean to be an old X-Lab, so it has to be a new experiment from the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I am not sure what the machine is, but it reminds me of a particle accelerator. All these wires seem to form coils around the central tube. Could that be a new Gauss cannon? Who knows? If you got a better idea, let me know in the comments. This scene is absolutely chilling, with all the corpses, all this blood and the flickering light bulb. I wonder who these people were and what killed them. The location is probably some sort of electric station positioned at the eastern edge of the map, next to the pond. Notice the camouflage pattern on the AK. Here's a close look at the Zombified Stalkers. Poor souls. It confirms that in spite of the fall of the Brain Scorcher and other monolith Psi installations, there will still be ways for stalkers to get their brains fried and turned into zombies. All of them here are wearing the same leather jacket, though we notice variations in the gas mask. The classic stalker masks, the Soviet GP5 with filter, and GP4 with tube. About the location, I'm not sure. We can see the chimney of the power plant not too far away, and an unknown structure behind the zombies. Maybe this is close to the Dead Valley? The passing of time at Rostok. Details include the Freedom emblem proudly standing on the tower, classic crates of the OG trilogy, Duga in the distance, and the spot where the Rostok radio video takes place. We also notice the absence of the weird bubble anomaly seen in previous material, and that really makes me wonder if anomalies will be dynamic. It could also be that this anomaly appears only at some point in the story, or on the contrary, that they somehow figured out a way to get rid of it. The lair of who seems to be a weapon dealer. He's wearing a stalker suit and using his PDA, on the back of which the symbol of Ukrainian armed forces is visible. The weapons on display include the GP-37, AR-416, Viper 5, MAC-10, Fora 221, Karod, Remington 700, Vector, and what I think is that new KSG-like shotgun we saw earlier. Moreover, a stuffed Bayoon cat, or statue of it, is visible for a moment. It has been improved a lot compared to its version from Clear Sky. Stalkers relaxing at the campfire during the night. I like how they all have unique poses and seem to have brought various items to the party. Canned food, beer bottles, a coffee pot. One guy is smoking, another is standing guard on the far left. We briefly see a small animal flying in the frame. It could be one of the butterflies we already know of, but I like to think it might be a bat. Here is a brand new bar, located at the arena in Rostok, which, unlike the 100 Rads, is held by Freedom. According to the sign, the place is named Tyrant. There's a lot of details to see here. Of course, we have the updated costumes of the Freedomers, lots of food and drink items scattered on the tables and behind the counter, as well as cooking utensils. I noticed a funny glitch. The sausage is standing up over there. Also, there's a guy in orange SSP suit. I guess some scientists will be working with Freedom. Now, did you see the figure overlooking the scene? I think this could be Mikluha, a former legendary leader of Freedom, who we know is coming back in Stalker 2. In fact, in the description of the bread, it was mentioned that Mikluha became the most important supplier of fresh bread in the zone, which is why I believe he's overseeing the operation at the Freedom Bar. Moreover, this place seems much more crowded and lively than the previously featured 100 Rads Bar. My theory is that following the takeover of Rostok by Freedom, the Tyrant Bar has been overshadowing the 100 Rads legacy by getting more customers, slowly killing Barkeep's business. This might be because Barkeep used to work with duty. In an artwork, we saw him hanging at a brand new bar, and in fact another bar is located on the paper map around the place where we suspect the duty base is located. The second part of my theory is that Barkeep will grow fed up with losing all of his customers to Mikluha, and eventually he will leave Rostok and establish a new bar at the concrete factory. The location of the bookstore in Prypiat. This is where Dektyrev found the monolith makeshift antenna in Call of Prypiat. As expected, the place has been faithfully recreated, along with all the old books rotting on the ground. An amazing detail I spotted is the presence of the bumper car, that was already here in Call of Prypiat, and even contained some stashed goodies. I'm not sure if this bumper car really stands there in real life, but if it does, I would really like to hear the story of how it ended up here, far away from the Amusement Park. Moving on, a new look at the giant excavator from the quarry we already saw in the Really Again trailer. Skif still holds the Vintar. As we suspected, the breach here seems to have some sort of pipeline or conveyor belt connecting to the main machine. Interestingly, this part of the quarry does not seem to contain anomalies. that were heavily present in Call of Prypiat. Another claw-shaped anomaly, where Skif is navigating the field with the Gilka detector and the bolts. The place is filled with vortex anomalies, and the silhouette of a stalker can be spotted in the distance. Some say this might take place somewhere in the Dead Valley, but I'm not convinced. I feel like this is too colorful and overgrown to fit to the name. Skif looks for an artifact in a field of chemical anomalies. The ground is below the normal surface level, on which we can see some heavy equipment as well as a railway going from west to east. With this in mind, there is almost no doubt the scene takes place in the anomalous part of the quarry, close to the train tracks of Yaniv Station. The detector is the Veles, now improved to feature the anomaly scanner developed for the Svarog prototype in Call of Prypiat. The artifact is indicated by the red dot, and chemical anomalies are represented by circles filled with 3 droplets of acid. I love how some anomalies are bigger than others, hinting at variations to be a thing even for the same anomaly type. This appears to be a brand new location, and unfortunately I don't know what this strange structure is. Skif is holding the suppressed UDP as well as the Veles once again, although it only shows one anomaly on the radar. This is strange because there are many anomalies nearby, the same one that was revealed in the quest gameplay of the deep dive. Apparently it is called the Razor anomaly. Since Razor is not detected by the Veles, it is possible you will have to upgrade the detector in order for it to spot more types of anomalies. The movement of leaves indicates that the anomaly on the radar is of gravitational nature, and considering the icon I think it is either a vortex or a whirligig. Now that is a nice barbecue, in which the bear detector has spotted an artifact. I absolutely love the small fireball effect here. It reminds me of the jumping comets at the volcano anomaly in Call of Prypiat. The unfinished cooling tower of Reactor 5 can be seen in the distance, indicating the scene takes place on the vicinity of the construction site. In fact, the burning building exists in real life, and it used to be a fire station. Heh, ironic. Skif uses the branch detector to find an artifact inside a broken house, probably filled with burner anomalies. As he keeps his head down, it seems impossible to determine the exact location, especially since several such burnt houses exist within the zone. The artifact is named Plasma. It's actually a cut artifact from the development of Shadow of Chornobyl. Its description from one of the old design docs says, "Jelly-like plasma, harmless. Plasma is a very powerful source of energy, used by some types of artifact weapons. I'm quite sure its properties will change compared to what was originally planned, so this explanation does not matter much. But it's interesting to see that GSC is recycling concepts from around 2 decades ago." Here's another artifact, the Horn, found inside a building surrounded by several anomalies. We see the chemical pools as well as the same gravitational anomaly as before. In addition, notice how the new bubble-like anomaly is marked in the same way as the fruit punch is by the detector, confirming it is of chemical origins. I could not find anything about the horn, yet I can say it looks pretty. Okay, I wanna keep the best scene for last, so let's take a look at Prypiat first. Skif lurks in the city at night with his Karad assault rifle. Now, there's something I've been wondering about. What if there will be realistic moon cycles in the game? That would be such an insane detail. But if they can make all greens unique, I think this is the kind of length that GSC is willing to go to in order to create the best game possible. Finally, Skif approaches some electro-anomalies in what seems to be a clearing, possibly in the Red Forest. He triggers one of the anomalies with a bolt and picks up a wonder of the zone, the Compass, a legendary artifact said to be able to guide the Stalkers through even the most dangerous Anomalous Fields. In the previous games, we learned that the only known place where to find this artifact was inside a space anomaly, essentially a giant bubble in which Stalkers get trapped and eventually die by turning crazy or running out of supplies. Forrester explained that he once found himself into such an anomaly that looked like a familiar clearing of the Red Forest. That's where he got the compass, with which he managed to figure out a way out of the bubble. Now, the fact that the compass was only found in the space anomaly does not mean it only spawns here, but it is still implied. This makes me believe Skif might be in a space bubble looking for a way out. If that's the case, we will certainly see how the wonderful properties of the compass actually work, at last. Some say the compass has just been downgraded to a more regular artifact, but I doubt GSC would do that. In fact, let me finish with a detail that matches my belief. The compass does not appear as you approach it detector in hand like other artifacts do. The detectors do spot it, but it's always visible to the naked eye. It was the case in both Clear Sky and Call of Prypiat, and it remains the case here. In order to close this video, I want to remind you about what Zmitro Anashka said. I quote, "Stalker 2 is a huge, seamless open world, consisting of 20 regions, and each region has its own residents, architecture, anomalies, and even nature, and many of them could well be a fully separate game." May you reflect on these words, until I see you again in the next video. Good hunting, Stalkers.